While strolling through the city with his daughter, the millionaire businessman never imagined that a simple encounter would change their lives. Upon seeing a girl identical to his daughter, the child shouts, "Daddy, she's my sister!" The mystery begins to take shape when he realizes there's something strange in the air. What seemed to be a coincidence will reveal secrets that transform what he knows about family, love, and wealth. The autumn breeze swept through the streets of Boston, Massachusetts, carrying the sweet scent of fallen leaves and the promise of winter. Robert Caldwell, a 45-year-old self-made millionaire with piercing blue eyes and salt and pepper hair, walked hand in hand with his 7-year-old daughter Lily along Newbury Street. His tech company, Caldwell Innovations, had recently gone public, cementing his status among Boston's elite. But despite his success, Robert's heart had never fully healed after losing his wife Eleanor to illness 2 years ago. "Daddy, can we get ice cream?" Lily asked, her azure eyes, identical to her mother's, sparkling with excitement. She wore a red wool coat that matched her cherry-colored mittens, her blonde curls bouncing with each skip. "After we visit the art gallery, sweetheart," Robert replied, smiling down at his daughter. "Remember, we promised to see Miss Peterson's exhibition." Lily nodded enthusiastically. "I want to see the paintings of the ocean. Mommy loved the ocean." Robert's smile faltered slightly at the mention of Eleanor. His daughter's uncanny resemblance to her mother was both a blessing and a heartache. The same delicate features, the distinctive grey-blue eyes, and even the small dimple on her chin, all perfect replicas of the woman he had loved since their college days at MIT. As they approached Copley Square, Lily suddenly stopped, her gaze fixed on something across the street. Before Robert could react, she yanked her hand from his grip and darted away. "Lily!" Robert called out in alarm, his heart racing as he watched his daughter weave through pedestrians. "Lily, stop!" But Lily continued running until she reached a bench where a girl sat beside an elderly woman. The girl wore a faded blue jacket with patches on the elbows, her hair tied in a simple ponytail. Robert rushed after his daughter, an apology already forming on his lips for the disruption. Then he saw the girl's face, and the world seemed to stop spinning. "Daddy, Daddy!" Lily was jumping up and down, pointing at the girl. "Look, she's my sister. She looks just like me." Robert stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. The girl on the bench could have been Lily's twin. The same grey-blue eyes, the same heart-shaped face, the same distinctive dimple on her chin. Even the curve of her eyebrows matched Lily's perfectly. The only differences were her clothes, worn and clearly second-hand, and her hair, which was a shade darker than Lily's golden locks. The elderly woman, noticing Robert's shocked expression, stood up protectively. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern, as she placed a weathered hand on the girl's shoulder. "I'm sorry," Robert managed, still staring at the girl. "My daughter, she just—" He gestured helplessly toward Lily, who had already introduced herself to her doppelganger. "I'm Lily, what's your name?" she asked, unaware of the adult's tension. "Emma," the girl replied shyly, looking up at the elderly woman as if seeking permission to speak. "See, Daddy, Emma looks just like me," Lily declared triumphantly. "She has to be my sister." The elderly woman frowned, pulling Emma closer. "I'm Martha Jenkins," she said cautiously, "and this is my granddaughter, Emma." Robert knew she was lying. The resemblance between Emma and Eleanor was too striking to be coincidental. His wife had no siblings, no extended family who could account for this child's existence. Yet here she was, a perfect replica of Eleanor, just like Lily. "I'm Robert Caldwell," he said, extending his hand. "I apologize for my daughter's behavior, but I can't help but notice the remarkable resemblance between your granddaughter and my daughter." Martha's eyes narrowed slightly, her weathered face revealing decades of hardship and caution. "Children sometimes look alike," she said dismissively, but her grip on Emma's shoulder tightened. "Where do you live, Emma?" Lily asked, oblivious to the tension. "You should come to my house. We have a big playroom and a swing set in the backyard." "We live in Dorchester," Emma replied quietly, glancing up at Martha. Robert recognized the neighborhood as one of Boston's less affluent areas. "I don't mean to intrude," he said carefully, "but I would like to speak with you more, Ms. Jenkins. Perhaps I could give you my card." Martha hesitated, studying Robert's expensive wool coat and the gold watch peeking from beneath his sleeve. "I don't see what we have to discuss, Mr. Caldwell." "Please," Robert said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I need to understand why your granddaughter looks exactly like my late wife." The color drained from Martha's face. She took a step back, pulling Emma with her. "We need to go," she said firmly. "But Martha," Emma protested, looking at Lily with curiosity, "she does look like me, like looking in a mirror." "We're leaving, Emma," Martha insisted, gathering their few belongings. A worn canvas bag and a library book. "Now." Robert reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. "Please," he said, extending it toward Martha. "Call me. For the girl's sake." After a moment's hesitation, Martha took the card and slipped it into her bag. "Come on, Emma," she said, her voice gentler now. "We'll miss our bus." As they walked away, Robert watched Emma glance back over her shoulder. Her gray-blue eyes, Eleanor's eyes, filled with wonder and confusion. Lily waved enthusiastically, and to his surprise, Emma waved back. "Daddy, why did they leave?" Lily asked, tugging on his coat. "I wanted to play with my sister." Robert knelt down, placing his hands on Lily's shoulders. "Sweetheart, we don't know if she's your sister, but I promise you I'm going to find out." That night, after tucking Lily into bed, Robert sat in his study, a glass of scotch untouched before him. His mind raced with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. Had Eleanor hidden something from him? Was there a relative he didn't know about? The resemblance was too precise to be random chance. He reached for a framed photograph on his desk. Eleanor on their wedding day, her grey-blue eyes shining with happiness, the small dimple in her chin visible as she smiled. The same eyes he had seen today in a child from Dorchester, living with an elderly woman who clearly wasn't her biological grandmother. Robert pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Jason," he said when his private investigator answered, "I need your help with something urgent. There's a woman named Martha Jenkins living in Dorchester with a girl named Emma, about 7 years old. I need to know everything about them, where they came from, how long they've been in Boston, and most importantly, who Emma's parents are." After hanging up, Robert walked to the large window overlooking Boston's glittering skyline. Somewhere out there, a little girl with Eleanor's eyes was going to sleep in circumstances vastly different from Lily's comfortable bedroom. The thought twisted his heart. "What didn't you tell me, Eleanor?" he whispered to the empty room. "And what am I supposed to do now?" The questions hung in the air, unanswered. But deep down, Robert knew his life had just changed irrevocably. The carefully constructed world he had built after Eleanor's passing had been shaken to its foundation, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 days passed without a call from Martha Jenkins. Robert had trouble focusing on work, his mind constantly drifting to the little girl with Eleanor's eyes. Jason Porter, his investigator, had been unusually quiet as well, which meant he was either finding nothing or something so complex it required deeper digging. On Wednesday afternoon, Robert's phone rang as he sat in a board meeting. Seeing an unfamiliar number, he excused himself and stepped into the hallway. "Mr. Caldwell, this is Martha Jenkins." Robert's heart raced. "Miss Jenkins, thank you for calling. I wasn't sure you would." There was a pause on the other end. "I've been thinking about it for days," Martha admitted, her voice weary. "Emma hasn't stopped talking about Lily. She's never met anyone who looks like her before." "I understand," Robert said softly. "My daughter feels the same way." "I don't know what you want from us, Mr. Caldwell," Martha continued, her tone guarded. "We don't have much, but Emma is well cared for. She's a good girl, smart as a whip." "I'm not questioning your care for her, Miss Jenkins," Robert assured her. "I just need to understand the connection. Would you be willing to meet with me? Perhaps we could talk while the girls play together." Another lengthy pause followed. "There's a small park near our apartment. Emma likes the swings there. Saturday at noon?" "I'll be there," Robert promised, relief washing over him. "And Miss Jenkins?" "Thank you." After getting the address, Robert ended the call just as Jason approached from down the hallway. "I was about to call you," the investigator said, holding a manila folder. "I've got some preliminary information on Martha Jenkins and Emma." They moved to an empty conference room where Jason spread several documents across the table. Martha Jenkins, 72 years old, retired nurse's aide. She's lived in the same apartment in Dorchester for over 30 years. Widowed, her husband passed 20 years ago. One son who lives in Seattle, rarely visits. "And Emma?" Robert pressed. Jason hesitated. "This is where it gets interesting. There's no official adoption record. but I found school registration showing Martha as Emma's guardian, not grandmother. According to neighbors, Emma appeared about 4 years ago. Before that, Martha lived alone. So she lied about being Emma's grandmother, Robert mused. Any record of Emma's birth parents? Nothing concrete yet, Jason admitted. But there's this. He slid a photocopy across the table, a handwritten note on lined paper. One of Martha's neighbors remembered an incident about 4 years ago. A young woman left Emma with Martha temporarily, claiming she'd be back in a few days. She never returned. The neighbor recalled Martha showing her this note after the woman disappeared. Robert read the hastily scribbled message. Please take care of my daughter. Her name is Emma. I can't do this anymore. She deserves better than me. Her birthday is April 15th. She likes stories about butterflies. Anna, April 15th. Robert's hand trembled. Lily's birthday was April 15th. There's one more thing, Jason added, sliding another document forward. I spoke with Emma's school counselor, who mentioned that when Emma first arrived, she had a small backpack with her. Inside was a tattered envelope with some documents. The counselor remembered seeing the name Kiara on one of them, not Anna. Robert felt the blood drain from his face. Kiara, he whispered. Yes. Does that name mean something to you? Kiara was Eleanor's middle name, Robert explained, his voice hollow. She rarely used it. It was her grandmother's name. Jason's expression shifted to one of concern. That's quite a coincidence. Too much of a coincidence, Robert agreed, his mind racing. Identical appearance, same birthday, and now this name connection. These girls must be related somehow. What's your next move? Jason asked. I'm meeting Martha and Emma on Saturday, Robert replied, gathering the documents. Keep digging, Jason. I need to know everything. Hospital records, birth certificates, anything that might explain how these girls are connected. As Saturday approached, Robert's anticipation grew. He told Lily they were going to meet Emma again, and his daughter's excitement was boundless. She insisted on bringing her favorite doll to show her new friend. The small neighborhood park in Dorchester stood in stark contrast to the manicured playgrounds of Back Bay. The equipment was older, the paint chipped, but children played happily nonetheless. Robert spotted Martha sitting on a bench, Emma beside her, both bundled against the November chill. There they are, Lily exclaimed, pulling Robert forward. Martha's expression was guarded as they approached, but Emma's face lit up at the sight of Lily. The two girls immediately began chatting as if they'd known each other forever. The swings are over there, Emma said, pointing. I can go really high. I brought my doll, Lily replied, holding up her toy. Her name is Princess Sparkle. As the girls ran toward the playground, Robert sat beside Martha, maintaining a respectful distance. Thank you for agreeing to meet, he began. Martha nodded stiffly, her eyes fixed on Emma. Your investigator has been asking questions around the neighborhood, she said without preamble. People talk, Mr. Caldwell. Robert winced. I apologize for the intrusion. I just needed to understand. What there is to understand is that Emma needs stability, Martha interrupted. She's had enough upheaval in her young life. I don't intend to disrupt her life, Robert assured her. But you must see the extraordinary resemblance. It can't be coincidence. Martha's weathered hands twisted in her lap. 4 years ago, she began slowly, a young woman knocked on my door. She looked desperate, thin, exhausted, with a small child clinging to her leg. She said she'd heard I sometimes provided childcare for working mothers in the building. She needed someone to watch her daughter for a few days while she sorted things out. This woman, did she call herself Anna? Robert asked gently. Martha looked surprised. Yes. She paid me for a week in advance, left that note I'm sure your investigator told you about, and never came back. Her voice cracked slightly. Emma was just 3 years old. She cried for her mother for weeks. And the documents in Emma's backpack, the ones with the name Kiara? Martha's eyes narrowed. How do you know about those? My investigator is thorough, Robert admitted. Please, I need to know. After a long moment, Martha sighed. There was an old envelope with some papers, medical records, I think. I saw the name Chiara Bellini on one of them. I assumed it was Anna's real name, that she was using a false identity. Robert felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. Chiara Bellini was Eleanor's maiden name. Ms. Jenkins, he said carefully. My wife's name before we married was Chiara Eleanor Bellini. She went by Eleanor, but Chiara was her birth name. Martha's face paled. That's not possible. I believe it is, Robert countered gently. My wife and we struggled with fertility issues for years before Lily was conceived through IVF. Before that, when we were in college, Eleanor mentioned donating eggs to help pay for her studies. I never thought much about it until now. You think Emma was born from your wife's donated eggs? Martha asked incredulously. The timing fits. The identical appearance, same birthday, the name Kiara on the documents, it's too much to be coincidence. Martha glanced toward the playground where Emma and Lily were taking turns pushing each other on the swings, their laughter carrying across the park. Even if that's true, what does it mean for Emma, for us? I don't know yet, Robert admitted. But I believe Emma might be Lily's half-sister biologically. They share the same maternal DNA. And what do you want, Mr. Caldwell? Martha asked, fear evident in her voice. To take her away? Because I won't let that happen. She may not be my blood, but I've raised her for 4 years. I'm the only family she knows. I have no intention of separating Emma from you, Robert assured her quickly. But if she is connected to my family, to my daughter, don't you think she deserves to know that? Don't you think both girls deserve the chance to know each other as sisters? Martha's shoulders slumped slightly. She asks about her mother sometimes. I never know what to tell her. Let me help find answers, Robert urged. For all of us. Their conversation was interrupted as the girls raced back to the bench, cheeks flushed from play and cold. Martha, did you see how high I went on the swing? Emma asked excitedly. I saw, sweetheart, Martha replied with a warm smile. Daddy, Emma's really good at the monkey bars, Lily added. She can go all the way across without stopping. Robert nodded, studying the two girls standing side by side. The resemblance was uncanny, down to the way they tilted their heads when curious. Emma, he said gently, would you like to come visit our house sometime? Lily has lots of toys she'd like to share with you. Emma's eyes widened. Can I, Martha? Please? Martha hesitated, then nodded slowly. We'll see, dear. As they prepared to leave, Robert handed Martha another card. This has my personal cell number. Please call me any time. And I'd like to have a DNA test done, if you're willing, just to confirm what I suspect. And if it confirms these girls are related, Martha asked quietly. Then we'll figure out what that means together, Robert promised, for both our families. As Robert and Lily walked back to their car, his daughter looked up with serious eyes. Daddy, is Emma really my sister? Robert knelt down, brushing a blonde curl from Lily's forehead. I don't know for sure yet, sweetheart, but I think she might be. I hope she is, Lily said firmly. I always wanted a sister. Robert smiled, though his heart was heavy with questions. Let's go home, Lily Bear. We have a lot to think about. In the rearview mirror, he watched Martha and Emma walking hand in hand toward the bus stop. Two figures huddled against the cold. One tall and bent with age, one small and skipping with childlike energy. Whatever the truth turned out to be, Robert knew their lives were now irrevocably connected. Monday morning found Robert sitting in the waiting room of New England Fertility Associates, a sleek medical facility in Cambridge. After a weekend of restless nights and endless questions, he had called in a favor from a college friend who now served on the board of the clinic. The friend had arranged an emergency meeting with Dr. Michael Anderson, the clinic's director, and one of Boston's leading fertility specialists. Mr. Caldwell? A receptionist appeared. Dr. Anderson will see you now. Robert was led to a corner office with large windows overlooking the Charles River. Dr. Anderson, a distinguished man in his 60s with a trim white beard, rose from behind his desk. Robert, good to meet you, he said, extending his hand. David spoke highly of you when he called. Please, have a seat and tell me how I can help. Robert sat, placing a folder on the desk between them. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice, Doctor. I'm trying to unravel something unusual involving my late wife. I'm sorry for your loss, Dr. Anderson said sincerely. Thank you. Robert opened the folder and removed 2 photographs, one of Lily and one of Emma, taken at the park on Saturday. My daughter, Lily, is on the left. The girl on the right is named Emma. I met her by chance last week. Dr. Anderson studied the images, his eyebrows rising. The resemblance is remarkable. They share the same birthday, April 15, 2018, Robert continued, and I've recently discovered that documents associated with Emma contained my wife's maiden name, Chiara Bellini. Dr. Anderson's expression shifted subtly. Bellini, you said. Yes, my wife mentioned donating eggs during college to help pay for her studies. That would have been around 2010 to 2014 when she was at MIT. The doctor tapped his fingers on the desk, considering. Patient records are confidential, Mr. Caldwell, even with donors. I understand, Robert said, leaning forward, but my wife has passed away, and there's a 7-year-old girl who looks exactly like my daughter. If Emma was conceived using Eleanor's donated eggs, doesn't she have a right to know her biological origins? Don't both girls have a right to know their sisters? Dr. Anderson studied Robert for a long moment before sighing. Let me see what I can find in our records. Egg donations from that period would have been archived. I can't promise anything, but given the circumstances, he trailed off, then stood. Wait here. As the doctor left, Robert moved to the window, watching rowers glide across the Charles River. The world continued its normal rhythms while his had been completely upended. What would Eleanor think of all this? Would she have wanted the girls to know each other, to grow up as sisters? The questions were endless. Nearly 20 minutes later, Dr. Anderson returned carrying an old-style file folder with a color-coded tab. We digitized most records years ago, he explained, but donor files from before 2015 were kept in hard copy for security reasons. He sat down, opening the folder carefully. I found a record for Chiara Bellini. She was indeed an egg donor in our program beginning in 2012. Robert's heart pounded. And her eggs? Were they used successfully? Dr. Anderson nodded slowly. One successful pregnancy was recorded from Ms. Bellini's donated eggs. The recipient was a woman named Rebecca Harris. Rebecca Harris, Robert repeated, committing the name to memory. Is there any way to contact her? That would be against our confidentiality policies, Dr. Anderson said firmly. However, he hesitated, studying Robert's face. The records show that Ms. Harris surrendered parental rights when the child was 3 years old. There were mental health concerns noted. The timeline matched perfectly with Emma's appearance in Martha's life. What happens in cases like that, when parental rights are surrendered? Typically, the child enters the foster care system and becomes available for adoption, Dr. Anderson explained. But I don't have information about what happened after the rights were surrendered. That would be handled by the Department of Children and Families. Robert processed this information, pieces of the puzzle slowly fitting together. One more question, if I may. When Eleanor and I conceived Lily through IVF, could the clinic have used Eleanor's own previously donated eggs without our knowledge? Dr. Anderson looked genuinely shocked. Absolutely not, Mr. Caldwell. That would be highly unethical and against all protocols. Each donor's eggs are tracked with unique identifiers, and the system prevents such cross-usage. When you and your wife underwent IVF, you would have used her fresh eggs, not previously frozen donated ones. Robert nodded, somewhat relieved. So Lily and Emma would be half-sisters at most, sharing Eleanor's DNA but with different fathers. That's the most likely scenario, Dr. Anderson confirmed, though only DNA testing could confirm this with certainty. Armed with this new information, Robert thanked the doctor and left the clinic. In his car, he immediately called Jason. I need you to find everything you can on a Rebecca Harris, he instructed his investigator. She was the recipient of Eleanor's donated eggs and likely Emma's birth mother. She surrendered parental rights when Emma was 3 due to mental health issues. I'll get right on it, Jason promised. Robert's next stop was his attorney's office in downtown Boston. Sarah Mitchell had been handling his legal affairs for over a decade and was one of the few people he trusted implicitly. You want to establish a legal connection to a child who might be biologically related to your late wife through egg donation, Sarah clarified after Robert explained the situation, without disturbing her current living arrangements? Exactly, Robert confirmed. If Emma is indeed Eleanor's biological daughter, then she's Lily's half-sister. I want to ensure she has access to the same opportunities as Lily, education, healthcare, financial security, without removing her from Martha Jenkins' care. Sarah tapped her pen against her legal pad. It's complicated, but not impossible. A DNA test would be the first step. Then, if confirmed, we could pursue a legal guardianship arrangement that preserves Ms. Jenkins' primary role, while giving you certain rights and responsibilities toward Emma. That sounds perfect, Robert said, relieved. I don't want to disrupt Emma's life more than it already has been. What about financial support? Sarah asked. Given the disparity in living conditions you've described, Robert considered this. I want to help, but I'm concerned about how Martha might react. She seems fiercely independent. We could establish a trust for Emma's future needs. College, healthcare, extracurricular activities, Sarah suggested. That might be less threatening than direct financial support. After discussing details and signing the necessary paperwork to begin the process, Robert left the attorney's office feeling more settled than he had in days. There was a clear path forward now, dependent only on the DNA test results. That evening, as Robert helped Lily with her homework, his phone rang. It was Martha. "Mr. Caldwell," she began without preamble. "Emma hasn't stopped talking about your daughter and your home. She's asking when she can visit." Robert smiled. "We'd love to have you both over any time." "I've been thinking about what you said," Martha continued, her voice softer now. "About the DNA test. If you're still interested, we're willing." "Thank you, Martha," Robert said sincerely. "This means a lot to me, to all of us." They arranged for a home DNA test kit to be delivered to Martha's apartment the next day, with Robert covering all expenses. The results would take approximately a week. In the meantime, Martha agreed to bring Emma to Robert's home that Saturday for lunch and an afternoon playdate with Lily. When Saturday arrived, Robert found himself surprisingly nervous. He had instructed his housekeeper to prepare a special lunch, nothing too extravagant but welcoming. Lily had spent the morning organizing her toys, deciding which ones to share with Emma first. The doorbell rang precisely at noon. Robert opened the door to find Martha and Emma standing on his doorstep, both dressed in their best clothes. Emma's eyes widened as she took in the grand entrance hall with its crystal chandelier and marble floor. "Your house is like a castle," she whispered in awe. "It's just a house," Robert said gently, kneeling to her level. "And you're very welcome here, Emma." Lily appeared at the top of the stairs, immediately racing down when she spotted Emma. "You came!" "I want to show you my room and my dollhouse and the treehouse in the backyard." The adults watched as Lily grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her up the stairs, both girls giggling. "She's never had a friend like this before," Martha commented, handing Robert her worn coat. "Never had anyone who looked like her either." "Neither has Lily," Robert admitted. "Would you like some tea, Martha? Or coffee?" "Tea would be lovely," she replied, following him to the kitchen. As they sat at the kitchen island, watching the housekeeper prepare lunch, Robert noticed Martha studying the space. The high-end appliances, the marble countertops, the view of the manicured garden through the large windows. "It's very different from our apartment," she said matter-of-factly. "I've been fortunate in business," Robert acknowledged. "But a house is just a structure. What matters is the people inside it." Martha nodded, sipping her tea. "Emma deserves opportunities I can't give her. She's brilliant, you know. Her teachers say she's reading at a 5th grade level already." "Lily struggles with reading," Robert admitted. "Numbers come easily to her, but words are difficult." "They're different despite looking the same," Martha observed. "Emma's quiet, observes everything. From what I've seen, Lily's more outgoing." "Eleanor was the quiet, thoughtful one," Robert said with a sad smile. "I was always talking, always moving. Lily got that from me, I suppose." Their conversation was interrupted by the girls' return, both slightly out of breath from running down the stairs. "Daddy, can Emma see the treehouse?" Lily asked excitedly. "After lunch," Robert promised. "It's almost ready." As they ate in the sunny breakfast nook, Robert observed the girls' interaction. Despite having just met, they moved in sync, passing dishes without being asked, finishing each other's sentences. It was as if they'd known each other their entire lives. After lunch, as promised, they explored the backyard. The elaborate treehouse had been built for Lily's 5th birthday, a miniature cottage nestled in the branches of a massive oak tree, complete with windows, a small deck, and a rope ladder. "This is amazing," Emma breathed, climbing up behind Lily. From the patio, Robert and Martha watched the girls play. "I mailed the DNA test yesterday," Martha said quietly. "The results should come next week." "Whatever they show," Robert replied. "I want you to know that Emma will always have a place here, and I hope you will too, Martha." The older woman turned to him, her eyes slightly misty. "You're a good man, Mr. Caldwell. Different from what I expected." "Robert, please," he insisted. "And thank you for being so open to all of this. Many people would have refused to even meet with me." "I only want what's best for Emma," Martha said simply. "I always have." Above them, The girls' laughter rang out from the treehouse, two identical voices joining in perfect harmony, as if nature itself was confirming what they all suspected. These children belonged together, no matter what circumstances had kept them apart. The DNA test results arrived on a Thursday afternoon, delivered in a plain white envelope to Robert's office. He stared at it for several minutes before finally opening it with trembling fingers. The clinical language confirmed what his heart already knew. Lily and Emma shared 25% of their DNA, consistent with half-siblings who share the same biological mother. Robert immediately called Martha, who had received her copy of the results that morning. "I've been sitting here for hours, trying to make sense of it all," she admitted, her voice unsteady. "It's true then. They're sisters." "Half-sisters," Robert confirmed. "But yes, they share Eleanor's DNA." "What happens now?" Martha asked, the worry evident in her voice. "Now we talk," Robert said gently. "Would you and Emma be able to come over for dinner tomorrow? I think we should discuss this together as a family." The word family hung in the air between them, its meaning expanded and redefined by a simple piece of paper. That evening, Robert sat Lily down in their living room, trying to find the right words to explain the complex situation in terms a 7-year-old could understand. "Sweetheart, remember how you said Emma looks just like you?" he began. Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Like we're twins." "Well, you're not twins, but you are sisters, half-sisters to be exact," Robert explained. "You both have the same mommy, but different daddies." Lily's brow furrowed in confusion. "But mommy is in heaven. How can Emma be my sister?" Robert took a deep breath. "Before mommy and I were married, she helped another family who wanted a baby but couldn't have one. She gave them a special gift that helped them have Emma." "Like how Santa brings presents?" Lily asked, trying to understand. Robert smiled. "Something like that. It means that Emma is a part of our family even though we just met her." Lily's face lit up. "So she can come live with us and be my sister forever?" "It's not that simple, sweetheart," Robert explained carefully. "Emma has her own family with Martha, who loves her very much, but we can spend lots of time together, and Emma will be a part of our lives from now on." "Promise?" Lily asked, holding out her pinky finger. Robert linked his pinky with hers. "Promise." The next evening, Martha and Emma arrived for dinner. Robert had arranged for his chef to prepare a special meal, and Lily had decorated the dining room with hand-drawn pictures of what she imagined their new, expanded family would look like. After dinner, while the girls played upstairs, Robert and Martha sat in the study, cups of coffee warming their hands. "I've been doing some thinking," Robert began, "and I've consulted with my attorney about possible arrangements that would respect your role as Emma's guardian while also acknowledging her connection to our family." Martha's posture stiffened slightly. "I've raised her for 4 years, Mr. Caldwell. I may not be wealthy, but I've given her everything I could. And I would never seek to change that," Robert assured her. "You're the only parent Emma has known, and that bond is sacred." Martha relaxed a fraction. "What are you proposing, then?" "A legal arrangement that grants me certain rights, visitation, input on major decisions like education and healthcare, while preserving your primary guardianship," Robert explained. "I'd also like to establish a trust fund for Emma's future and provide financial support for her immediate needs. Better housing in a safer neighborhood, quality healthcare, educational opportunities." "I don't need charity," Martha said, her pride evident. "It's not charity," Robert countered gently. "It's a father providing for his child. Because that's how I see Emma now, as my child just as much as Lily is, not by blood but by heart." Martha's eyes filled with tears. "She deserves so much more than I can give her. You've given her the most important thing, love and stability during a tumultuous time," Robert said sincerely. "Now let me help provide the rest." After a lengthy discussion about specifics, they agreed on a framework that would allow Emma to attend the same private school as Lily, while continuing to live with Martha in a new apartment Robert would help secure in a neighborhood closer to his home. As they finalized these plans, Robert hesitated, then reached into his desk drawer. "There's one more thing," he said, removing a small wooden box. "When I was looking through Eleanor's personal effects, I found this hidden in a secret compartment of her jewelry box." He opened the box to reveal a sealed envelope with "For R when the time comes," written in Eleanor's elegant handwriting. "I haven't opened it yet," Robert admitted. "I found it yesterday and somehow I felt it might relate to all of this. Martha leaned forward, curiosity evident in her expression. "Are you going to open it now?" Robert nodded, carefully breaking the seal and unfolding the letter inside. As he read Eleanor's words, written in her familiar script, his hands began to tremble. "My dearest Robert," he read aloud, his voice breaking slightly. "If you're reading this, then I'm no longer with you and Lily. I'm sorry for that, more than words can express. There's something I need to tell you, something I should have shared long ago but couldn't find the courage. During our 3rd year at MIT, when money was tight, I donated eggs at New England Fertility Associates. It was just a way to help pay for textbooks and rent. At least that's what I told myself. But part of me also loved the idea that I could help another family experience the joy of parenthood. I never thought much about it until last year, when I received a letter from the clinic. A child had been born from my donation, a little girl. The recipient mother had experienced severe mental health issues and had inquired about the possibility of contacting me. While the clinic couldn't reveal my identity, they forwarded her letter. Her name was Rebecca Harris, and her daughter, my biological daughter, was named Emma. The letter broke my heart, Robert. She wrote about her struggles with depression and her fear that she couldn't provide properly for Emma. She didn't explicitly ask for help, but the desperation was clear. After receiving my diagnosis and knowing my time was limited, I made a decision. I hope you'll understand. I found Rebecca and Emma. I didn't approach them directly, but I observed them from a distance. Rebecca was clearly struggling, living in a rundown apartment in Dorchester. Emma looked so much like Lily it took my breath away. I arranged for an anonymous monthly stipend to be sent to Rebecca through a lawyer, hoping it would help them stay afloat. But when my condition worsened, I knew it wouldn't be enough. I needed to ensure Emma would be cared for after I was gone. That's when I noticed Martha Jenkins, an elderly woman in their building, who often helped watch Emma when Rebecca was having difficult days. Martha showed Emma such kindness and patience. I had my lawyer make discreet inquiries and learned that Martha was a retired nurse's aide with an impeccable reputation. What happened next, I'm not proud of. When Rebecca reached out to my lawyer expressing that she could no longer care for Emma due to her worsening mental state, I arranged for Martha to become Emma's guardian. Rebecca agreed to surrender her parental rights, believing it was in Emma's best interest, and the lawyer ensured all paperwork cited Martha as the preferred guardian. I know I should have told you, should have brought Emma into our family directly, but I feared disrupting Lily's life when I knew I wouldn't be there to help with the transition. I convinced myself that Emma would be better off with Martha's undivided attention than as part of a grieving family adjusting to life without me. Now I realize I was wrong. These girls are sisters. They deserve to know each other, to share the bond that only sisters can have. Martha has been Emma's guardian angel, but Emma also deserves to know her biological family, you and Lily. My time is running out, my love. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. But perhaps somehow you'll find Emma, and when you do, please tell her that I loved her, even though we never met. Tell her she was never forgotten. Forever yours, Eleanor. Robert lowered the letter, tears streaming down his face. Martha was crying too, her weathered hands covering her mouth. She knew, Robert whispered. All this time, Eleanor knew about Emma. She arranged for me to take care of her, Martha realized, her voice thick with emotion. I always wondered why the lawyer was so insistent that I become Emma's guardian, why the process went so smoothly despite my age. Eleanor was always thinking ahead, always planning, Robert said with a sad smile. Even at the end, she was trying to protect everyone, Lily, Emma, even me. What do we tell the girls? Martha asked after a moment. Robert considered this. The truth in terms they can understand, that their mother loved them both and wanted them to find each other someday. They called the girls downstairs, and sitting together in the living room, Robert carefully explained how Eleanor had helped create Emma and had made sure she would be cared for by Martha. So Mommy knew about me? Emma asked, her grey-blue eyes wide with wonder. Yes, sweetheart, Robert confirmed. She knew about you and loved you very much. And she wanted us to be sisters, Lily added firmly, taking Emma's hand in hers. That's right, Martha said, smiling through her tears. She wanted you to find each other. And now we have, Emma said, squeezing Lily's hand. As Robert watched the two girls, Mirror images of each other, yet unique individuals with their own personalities and experiences, he felt Eleanor's presence surrounding them all, bringing together the fragments of her legacy into a new, beautiful mosaic. That night, after Martha and Emma had gone home with promises to return the next day to continue planning their new arrangement, Robert stood in his bedroom, looking at Eleanor's photograph on the nightstand. "You should have told me," he whispered to her image. "But I understand why you couldn't. And I promise you, Eleanor, I'll love Emma as my own. Both our girls will grow up knowing how extraordinary their mother was." He could almost hear Eleanor's gentle laugh, could almost feel her hand on his shoulder. For the first time since her passing, Robert felt a sense of peace. Their family wasn't broken. It was just bigger than he had realized. And somewhere, he was certain, Eleanor was smiling. Spring arrived in Boston, bringing cherry blossoms to Commonwealth Avenue and a fresh start for the newly expanded Caldwell family. Over the past 4 months, Robert had worked diligently to integrate Emma and Martha into their lives while respecting the boundaries they had established. The changes had been gradual but significant. Martha and Emma now lived in a comfortable 3-bedroom apartment in a well-maintained building just 10 blocks from Robert's home, close enough for frequent visits but separate enough to maintain their independence. Robert had purchased the apartment outright and placed it in a trust for Emma, with Martha having lifetime residency rights. Emma had transferred to Lily's private school, Brighton Academy, where she quickly distinguished herself as an exceptional student. Initially, the administrators had been concerned about having identical-looking girls in the same grade, but the sisters' distinct personalities soon made it easy to tell them apart. Lily remained outgoing and artistic, while Emma was thoughtful and academically driven. On a warm Saturday in April, the entire family gathered in the Caldwell backyard to celebrate the girls' 8th birthday. Robert had arranged for a carnival-themed party, complete with a small Ferris wheel, cotton candy machines, and games with prizes. "This is extravagant even for you," Martha commented, as she helped Robert arrange gift bags on a table decorated with balloons. Robert smiled sheepishly. "I wanted their first birthday together to be special." "Emma's never had a birthday party before," Martha admitted. "Not a real one, anyway. We usually just had cupcakes and I'd give her a small gift." "Well, she's making up for lost time today," Robert said, gesturing toward the girls who were getting their faces painted by a professional artist. Lily had chosen a butterfly design, while Emma opted for a galaxy of stars across her cheeks. The party was in full swing when Jason Porter, Robert's investigator, arrived with his wife and son. After greeting Robert with a handshake, Jason pulled him aside. "I've found Rebecca Harris," he said quietly. Robert's heart skipped a beat. "Emma's birth mother, where is she?" "A treatment facility in New Hampshire," Jason replied. "She's been there for almost a year, receiving care for bipolar disorder. According to her doctors, she's made remarkable progress." "Does she know about Emma? About our arrangement?" Jason shook his head. "She's been asking about her daughter, though. The facility contacted the Department of Children and Families, who eventually led them to your attorney. Sarah called me yesterday." Robert ran a hand through his hair, processing this new complication. "What does she want?" "Just to know Emma is okay," Jason said. "She's not seeking custody or even visitation at this point. She simply wants to know her daughter is being cared for." Robert glanced toward the girls, now laughing as they tried to toss rings onto bottlenecks. "We should tell Martha right away." They found Martha in the kitchen, helping the caterers arrange trays of finger foods. "Rebecca Harris is in a treatment facility in New Hampshire," Robert explained after asking for a moment of privacy. "She's been asking about Emma." Martha's face paled. "She wants her back after all this time?" "No," Jason clarified quickly. "She just wants to know Emma is all right. She's not seeking to disrupt your guardianship." Martha sank into a chair, relief evident in her expression. "Thank goodness. I don't think I could bear to lose her now." "We won't let that happen," Robert assured her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "But we should consider how to handle this. Emma has a right to know about her birth mother eventually, but not today," Martha said firmly. "Not on her birthday." "Of course not," Robert agreed. "We'll discuss this more after the party." The celebration continued, with the girls blowing out candles on a massive 3-tiered cake decorated with their names in icing. As Robert watched them open presents, exclaiming with identical expressions of delight over each gift, He marveled at how quickly they had bonded. Despite their different upbringings, Lily and Emma had developed the deep connection that only siblings could share. Later that evening, after the party had wound down and the girls were upstairs playing with their new toys, Robert, Martha, and Jason sat in the study to discuss Rebecca Harris. "I believe we should meet with her," Robert said after careful consideration. "Not with Emma present, at least not initially, but we should assess her condition and intentions firsthand." "I'll go with you," Martha said immediately. "I need to see this woman for myself." "I can arrange it," Jason offered. "The facility director is expecting your call." 2 weeks later, Robert and Martha made the 2-hour drive to Pine Valley Wellness Center in rural New Hampshire. The facility was nestled among towering pine trees, its modern buildings designed to blend with the natural surroundings. Dr. Vivian Chen, the center's director, greeted them in her office. "Rebecca has been with us for 11 months, she explained. When she arrived, she was in a severe manic episode followed by deep depression. She had been self-medicating with alcohol and was homeless. "And now?" Robert asked. "She's responded remarkably well to treatment," Dr. Chen said. "She's been stable on medication for 6 months, participates actively in therapy, and has even started teaching art classes for other patients. Her psychiatrist believes her prognosis is excellent, provided she maintains her treatment regimen." "What prompted her to ask about Emma after all this time?" Martha inquired, her tone guarded. "Part of Rebecca's therapy involves making amends and taking responsibility for past actions," Dr. Chen explained. "She's expressed deep remorse about surrendering Emma, though she maintains it was the right decision given her untreated condition at the time." "Is she seeking to re-establish contact?" Robert asked. "Eventually, yes," Dr. Chen admitted, "but she understands that would need to happen gradually, and only if deemed in Emma's best interest by her current guardians. She's prepared to accept whatever limitations you set." "I'd like to meet her," Martha said suddenly. "Alone first. Then Robert can join us." Dr. Chen nodded. "She's waiting in the garden. I'll take you to her." The garden was a peaceful space filled with flower beds and stone pathways. Sitting on a bench beneath a flowering dogwood tree was a slender woman with auburn hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore jeans and a light blue sweater, her hands nervously twisting in her lap as Martha approached. "Rebecca," Martha said softly. The woman looked up, her green eyes widening with recognition. "You're Martha Jenkins," she said, standing quickly. "Oh, you're the one who took care of Emma when I couldn't." Martha nodded, studying Rebecca's face for any resemblance to Emma. There was little. Emma had clearly inherited most of her features from Eleanor. "May I sit?" Martha asked, gesturing to the bench. Rebecca nodded, moving over to make room. "How is she?" she asked immediately. "Is she happy? Healthy?" "She's both," Martha assured her. "She's thriving, actually. She's incredibly bright, reads constantly, and has a particular talent for mathematics." Tears filled Rebecca's eyes. "That's wonderful. I always knew she was special." She hesitated before adding, "The doctors told me you're not alone in caring for her now." "No," Martha confirmed. "We've discovered Emma's biological connection to another family, her donor mother's family. They've become part of our lives, and Emma now has a half-sister who looks remarkably like her." Rebecca absorbed this information, nodding slowly. "I always wondered about her donor. The clinic said she was a student, brilliant, with a perfect medical history." She wiped away a tear. "I'm glad Emma has a bigger family now. That's all I ever wanted for her. People who would love her when I couldn't." "You did the right thing," Martha said, surprising herself with the gentleness in her voice. "Giving her up when you knew you couldn't provide what she needed, that took courage." "It was the hardest thing I've ever done," Rebecca admitted, "but I was so sick and getting worse. I couldn't bear the thought of her suffering because of my illness." Martha reached out impulsively and took Rebecca's hand. "She's not suffering. She's loved and secure and happy." "Could I?" Rebecca began hesitantly. "Could I see a picture of her? Just to see how she's grown?" Martha pulled out her phone and scrolled to a recent photo of Emma on the swings at the park, her face alight with joy, her grey-blue eyes sparkling. Rebecca gasped softly. "She's beautiful," she whispered. "She looks nothing like me." "No," Martha agreed. "She takes after her donor mother." After a few minutes of sharing stories about Emma, her love of astronomy, her habit of organizing her books by color, her preference for strawberry ice cream, Martha texted Robert to join them. When Robert approached, Rebecca stood nervously. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, extending her hand, "thank you for coming. And thank you for everything you've done for Emma." "She's family," Robert said simply, shaking her hand, "just as Martha is now family." They spent the next hour talking about Emma, discussing Rebecca's treatment progress, and carefully exploring what a future relationship might look like. By the end, they had reached a tentative agreement. Rebecca would continue focusing on her recovery, exchanging letters and photos with Martha and Robert for the next 6 months. If her progress remained stable, they would consider introducing her to Emma, first through video calls and eventually in person, always with Martha present. On the drive back to Boston, Martha was unusually quiet, staring out the window at the passing landscape. "What are you thinking?" Robert asked gently. "I was so prepared to hate her," Martha admitted, "to see her as the woman who abandoned Emma. But seeing her today," she trailed off, searching for words. "She's just a person who got sick," Robert supplied, "who made the best decision she could for her child under impossible circumstances." "Yes," Martha agreed, "just like Eleanor did." The parallel hadn't occurred to Robert before, but it struck him with sudden clarity. Both women had made difficult choices out of love for Emma. Eleanor arranging for Martha's guardianship, knowing she wouldn't survive, and Rebecca surrendering her rights, knowing she couldn't provide proper care. Family comes in many forms, Robert reflected. Biological, chosen, circumstantial. And Emma now has all three, Martha said with a small smile. When they returned to Boston, they found the girls in the treehouse reading books side by side, their identical profiles illuminated by the late afternoon sun. Neither Robert nor Martha mentioned their meeting with Rebecca. That conversation would come later, when the time was right. For now, it was enough to watch these two extraordinary girls, born of the same genetic mother but raised in vastly different circumstances, finding their way toward a shared future that neither could have imagined just months ago. That evening, as Robert tucked Lily into bed, she asked a question that caught him off guard. "Daddy, does Emma love Martha the same way I love you?" Robert considered this thoughtfully. "I believe she does, sweetheart. Family love isn't about blood or DNA. It's about who takes care of you, who knows your favorite foods and reads you stories and kisses you goodnight." Lily nodded, satisfied with this answer. "Then Emma has two families, just like she has two homes." "That's right," Robert agreed, "and that makes her very lucky indeed." "We're all lucky," Lily declared sleepily, "because now our family is bigger and better." As Robert turned off the light and closed Lily's door, he couldn't help but think how wise children could be in their simple, unquestioning acceptance. Adults complicated things with legalities and societal expectations, while children simply opened their hearts to love in whatever form it appeared. Downstairs, he found Martha preparing to leave, gathering her purse and jacket. "Stay for a cup of tea," he offered. "There's something I'd like to discuss with you." Martha checked her watch, then nodded. "Emma's already asleep in the guest room. I suppose a few more minutes won't hurt." Over steaming mugs of chamomile tea, Robert outlined an idea that had been forming in his mind for weeks, a foundation in Eleanor's name that would support families affected by mental illness, particularly single mothers struggling to care for their children. "We could help women like Rebecca get treatment while ensuring their children remain in stable, loving environments," he explained, "not separating families permanently, but providing support during the recovery process." Martha's eyes lit up. "That would be wonderful. So many children end up in the system because their parents simply can't access proper care. I was hoping you might consider being involved," Robert continued. "Your experience as a nurse's aide, combined with your perspective as Emma's guardian, would be invaluable." "I'd be honored," Martha said sincerely. "It would give purpose to everything we've been through." As they continued discussing possibilities for the foundation, Robert realized how much Martha had come to mean to him, not just as Emma's guardian, but as a trusted friend and advisor. Their unlikely connection, born from extraordinary circumstances, had evolved into a partnership that enriched both their lives. Family, Robert was learning, could emerge from the most unexpected beginnings, and sometimes the most beautiful gardens grew from seeds planted in the midst of storms. 18 months later, on a crisp October afternoon, Lily and Emma sat side by side in the auditorium of Brighton Academy, nervously awaiting the results of the Regional Mathematics Olympiad. Now 9 years old, the girls had grown slightly taller, though they remained strikingly similar in appearance. Their personalities, however, continued to diverge. Lily passionate about art and drama, Emma devoted to science and mathematics. And first place in the elementary division goes to... The announcer paused dramatically. Emma Jenkins Caldwell. Emma's eyes widened in disbelief as Lily squealed and hugged her tightly. Robert and Martha, sitting in the row behind them, exchanged proud smiles as Emma made her way to the stage to accept her trophy and certificate. "She looks just like Eleanor accepting her MIT scholarship," Robert whispered to Martha. "That same mixture of pride and shyness." Martha nodded, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "She's worked so hard for this." The hyphenated surname had been Emma's idea, proposed 6 months earlier, when Robert had formalized his legal relationship with her as co-guardian alongside Martha. "I want both my families in my name," she had explained with the straightforward logic that characterized her approach to life. After the ceremony, they celebrated at Emma's favorite restaurant, an unpretentious family-owned Italian place in the North End. As they shared plates of pasta and garlic bread, Emma announced her plans for the $500 prize money that accompanied her trophy. "I want to create a mathematics club at Dorchester Elementary," she declared, referring to her former school. "With books and special calculators and puzzle games. Ms. Thompson says there's no budget for extracurriculars, but math is important." Robert felt his chest tighten with emotion. Despite all the privileges Emma now enjoyed, the comfortable home, the prestigious school, the private tutors, she remained deeply connected to her roots and determined to share her opportunities with others. "That's a wonderful idea, sweetheart," he said. "In fact, I'd be happy to match your prize money to help get the club started." Emma's face lit up. "Really? That would mean $1,000. We could buy so many resources. The Eleanor Caldwell Foundation could potentially provide ongoing support as well," Martha added, "as part of our educational initiative." The foundation, established a year earlier, had quickly become a respected organization in Boston's non-profit sector. With Robert's financial backing and Martha's practical insight, they had already launched several programs supporting families affected by mental illness, including a partnership with Pine Valley Wellness Center, where Rebecca Harris now worked as a peer counselor. Rebecca had re-entered Emma's life gradually, beginning with letters and video calls, progressing to supervised visits, and eventually becoming a welcome presence at special occasions. Currently, she visited Boston one weekend each month, staying in a small apartment Robert kept for out-of-town business associates. Her relationship with Emma was evolving naturally, not quite maternal but more than friendship. They shared a love of art that neither Martha nor Robert fully understood, spending hours together sketching and painting. "Maybe Rebecca could help design posters for the math club," Lily suggested, always eager to include everyone. "She's really good at drawing." "That's a great idea," Emma agreed, her face serious as she considered the logistics. "We'll need to advertise so kids will join." As the girls continued planning, Martha leaned closer to Robert. "Have you told them about the house yet?" she whispered. Robert shook his head. "I was thinking we could take them to see it tomorrow." The house was actually a spacious Victorian in Brookline that Robert had recently purchased. Situated halfway between his home and Martha's apartment, it featured separate living quarters for Martha on the first floor, family spaces they could share, and plenty of room for both girls to have their own bedrooms while still being under the same roof. The arrangement had evolved naturally as their two households spent more and more time together. When Martha's lease came up for renewal, Robert had suggested the change, careful to emphasize that Martha would maintain her independence while making their increasingly interconnected lives more convenient. "I think they'll be thrilled," Martha said with a smile. "Emma has been asking if she could have more sleepovers with Lily." "Lily's been doing the same," Robert admitted. "I think they're orchestrating this behind our backs." Martha laughed, a sound that had become more frequent over the past year. At 74, she remained remarkably energetic, though Robert had noticed her slowing down recently, needing more rest between activities. The new living arrangement would allow him to provide subtle support without undermining her autonomy. The following day, they took the girls to see the Victorian house, presenting it as a potential new home and asking for their input. As expected, Lily and Emma were ecstatic, racing from room to room, already planning how to decorate their spaces. "And the best part," Robert explained as they gathered in the sun-drenched kitchen, "is that we'll all be living together, but Martha will have her own private apartment right here on the main floor. So we'll be like a real family? Emma asked, her grey-blue eyes serious. We already are a real family, Martha assured her, pulling her close. This just makes it more convenient. And Rebecca can stay here when she visits instead of at the boring apartment, Lily added enthusiastically. There's a guest room upstairs with a perfect art studio space attached. Robert and Martha exchanged glances, silently acknowledging how seamlessly the girls had integrated all the complex adult relationships in their lives. What had once seemed an impossible tangle of biological connections, legal arrangements, and emotional bonds had been simplified by children's natural ability to accept love in all its forms. By Christmas, they had moved into the Brookline house, which the girls had dubbed the family tree because, as Lily explained, it has different branches, but they're all connected to the same trunk. The name stuck, appearing on personalized stationery and eventually on a hand-painted sign hanging beside the front door. On Christmas morning, as they gathered around the tree in their pajamas to open gifts, Robert took a moment to absorb the scene. Martha, in her favorite armchair, sipping tea from a new mug Lily had painted for her. The girls cross-legged on the floor, sorting presents with methodical excitement. Rebecca, who had arrived the previous evening, curled up on the window seat, looking more relaxed and healthy than he had ever seen her. Before we start opening gifts, Robert said, reaching for a small box beneath the tree, I have something special to share. He handed the box to Martha, whose eyebrows rose in surprise. For me, for all of us really, Robert said enigmatically. Open it. Inside was a leather-bound book with Our Family embossed on the cover in gold. Martha opened it to find a family tree diagram, professionally drawn and beautifully illustrated. It showed Eleanor at the top, connected to both Lily and Emma. Below Emma were two branches, one to Rebecca, labeled Birth Mother, and another to Guardian Martha Jenkins. Robert appeared connected to Eleanor, with a solid line to Lily and a dotted line to Emma labeled Guardian. But what caught Martha's attention were the additions at the bottom of the page. Space for future generations, and small notations indicating the establishment of college funds, trusts and provisions, ensuring that this unusual family structure would be protected and supported long into the future. You've thought of everything, Martha said softly, running her fingers over the page. I tried, Robert admitted. I want both girls to always know where they came from and who their family is, all branches of it. Can I see? Emma asked, moving to perch on the arm of Martha's chair. She studied the diagram intently before asking, What's this symbol here? She pointed to a small star beside Eleanor's name. That indicates someone who is no longer with us physically, but remains part of our family, Robert explained gently. Emma nodded, seemingly satisfied with this explanation. So she's still my mother even though I never met her? Yes, sweetheart, Martha confirmed. Just as Rebecca is your mother in a different way, and You're my Martha, Emma said decisively, as if this title were explanation enough. And perhaps it was. A unique relationship that defied conventional labels, but was no less significant. As they continued opening gifts, Robert reflected on how far they had come in just 2 years. From that chance encounter in Copley Square to this blended, unconventional family celebrating Christmas together, it was a journey none of them could have anticipated. Later that afternoon, while the girls played with their new gifts and Martha napped, Robert found Rebecca in the kitchen making hot chocolate. Thank you for including me in the family tree, she said without preamble, stirring a pot of milk on the stove. It means more than you know. You're an important part of Emma's life, Robert replied simply, and therefore an important part of all our lives. Rebecca added cocoa powder to the milk, her movements precise. I've been offered a full-time position at Pine Valley, she said after a moment, as a patient advocate and art therapy coordinator. Congratulations, Robert said sincerely. That's wonderful news. It means I'll be staying in New Hampshire permanently, she continued, which is probably for the best. Emma needs stability, not a mother who appears and disappears. You're not disappearing, Robert pointed out. You're building a life that allows you to be consistently present in her life in a sustainable way. That's what good parents do. Rebecca looked up, her eyes glistening. Is that what I am? A good parent? You gave her life, Robert said gently. You made the painful choice to ensure she was cared for when you couldn't do it yourself. And now you're building a relationship with her based on who you both are today. Yes, Rebecca, that makes you a good parent. She nodded, blinking back tears as she poured the hot chocolate into mugs. Sometimes I look at her and see all the parallel lives we might have lived. If I hadn't gotten sick, if I'd had support earlier, if I'd known about Eleanor's letter. We can't live in those parallel universes, Robert said. Only in this one. And in this one, Emma has more love and support than most children could imagine. Rebecca smiled, a genuine expression that reached her eyes. She does, doesn't she? Between all of us, she's got quite the village. That's what family is, Robert said, helping her arrange the mugs on a tray. Her village of people who show up for each other, regardless of how they came to be connected. As they carried the hot chocolate into the living room, where the girls were teaching Martha how to play their new video game, Robert felt a sense of rightness settle over him. This was not the family he had envisioned when he married Eleanor, nor the one he had struggled to preserve after her passing. It was something new and unexpected, larger, more complex, and infinitely richer for its complexity. The traditional nuclear family model had been replaced by something resembling a constellation, individual stars with their own light, connected by invisible but unbreakable bonds to form a recognizable whole. And at the center of this particular constellation were two little girls with identical gray-blue eyes and different perspectives on the world, sisters in every way that mattered, bringing together people who might otherwise never have known each other. As Emma beat the video game level and threw her arms up in triumph, Robert caught Martha's eye across the room. She gave him a small nod as if to say, "We did good." And they had, creating a family defined not by conventional boundaries, but by the simple, powerful capacity to love beyond expectation or obligation. Family, Robert was learning, was not something you were given, but something you built, choice by choice, day by day. And sometimes, the most beautiful families were those assembled from unexpected pieces, fitted together with care and intention to create something entirely new. 5 years later, a gentle summer breeze rustled through the leaves of the massive oak tree in Copley Square. 14-year-old Emma sat on a bench beneath it, her gray-blue eyes focused on a well-worn copy of Astrophysics for Young People in a Hurry. Beside her, Lily sketched in a leather-bound art journal, occasionally glancing up to capture the movement of pigeons pecking at crumbs nearby. Though still identical in appearance, the sisters had developed distinct styles that made it easier for strangers to tell them apart. Emma favored practical clothing, jeans, button-down shirts, and sneakers, while Lily embraced a more artistic aesthetic, with flowing skirts and vintage-inspired blouses. Today, however, they had deliberately dressed alike in simple white sundresses, their blonde hair pulled back in matching ponytails. "Do you think he'll recognize this spot?" Emma asked, closing her book and checking her watch. "Definitely," Lily assured her. "Dad never forgets important places." They were waiting for Robert, who was bringing Martha to meet them after her doctor's appointment. At 79, Martha had been diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's disease the previous year. Though her symptoms remained mild, an occasional tremor in her right hand, some stiffness in her movements, she had gradually ceded more household responsibilities to Robert, who had proven himself a devoted caretaker. "There they are," Lily said, spotting Robert's tall figure guiding Martha carefully across the square. The girls waved, and Martha's face lit up with a smile. Though she moved more slowly now, leaning slightly on Robert's arm, her mind remained sharp as ever. "Happy anniversary!" the girls called in unison as the adults reached the bench. "Anniversary?" Martha asked, confused. "My birthday's not until October." "Not your birthday, Martha," Emma explained, taking her guardian's hand. "It's been exactly 7 years since Lily and I found each other, right here on this bench." Martha's eyes widened in recognition. "Oh my goodness, you're right. 7 years since you spotted each other and turned all our lives upside down." "Best upside down I've ever experienced," Robert said with a smile, helping Martha settle onto the bench. "I can't believe you girls remembered the exact date." "Emma remembers everything," Lily said, rolling her eyes affectionately. "She's got Dad's business brain." "And Lily remembers every emotion and nuance," Emma countered, "just like Mom did according to Dad's stories." The casual reference to Eleanor as Mom had evolved naturally over the years. Though Emma had never met Eleanor, she had come to know her through photographs, letters, and countless stories shared by Robert and others who had loved her. Similarly, she referred to Rebecca as Rebecca. acknowledging their special bond without forcing it into conventional parent-child terminology. "We have something for you," Lily announced, reaching into her tote bag. She removed a small wrapped package and handed it to Robert and Martha. Inside was a framed photograph of Copley Square taken in the early 1990s, showing a much younger Eleanor sitting on the very bench where they now gathered, reading a book, her blonde hair catching the sunlight. "Where did you find this?" Robert asked, his voice thick with emotion. "In one of the old albums in the attic," Emma explained. "We realized it was the same bench where Lily and I first met. Then we found this article about how Mum won a science scholarship in 1992, and they took her picture here because it was her favorite study spot." "She loved this square," Robert confirmed, tracing Eleanor's image with his finger. "We used to meet here between classes when we were at MIT. She said it was where she did her best thinking." "That's why we wanted to meet here today," Lily said, "because it's like Mom brought us all together, even though she wasn't here anymore." Martha dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "Your mother was quite remarkable, orchestrating all this from beyond." The girls had learned the full story years ago, how Eleanor had discovered Emma's existence, arranged for Martha's guardianship, and left the letter Robert eventually found. Rather than feeling abandoned or manipulated, Emma had found comfort in knowing her biological mother had cared enough to ensure her welfare, even while facing her own mortality. "We have reservations at Lucia's for lunch," Emma said, checking her watch again. "Rebecca's meeting us there." Rebecca had remained a consistent presence in their lives, visiting monthly and calling weekly. Now the director of arts programming at Pine Valley, she had recently begun dating a kind-hearted music therapist who had also joined them for holidays and special occasions. "Before we go," Robert said, "I have something for you girls as well." He reached into his jacket pocket and removed 2 small velvet boxes. "These were meant to be your 16th birthday presents, but this moment feels right." Inside each box was an elegant silver locket. When opened, Emma's contained a tiny photograph of Eleanor on one side and Martha on the other. Lily's held a picture of Eleanor and Robert. "The original family tree," Robert explained as the girls examined their gifts with wonder. "The foundations that made each of you who you are." "It's perfect," Emma whispered, immediately putting on her locket. "I'll never take it off," Lily declared, doing the same. As they made their way to the restaurant, Robert and Martha walked slightly behind the girls, who were animatedly discussing their upcoming high school classes. Brighton Academy had proven an excellent fit for both, with Lily thriving in the visual arts program, while Emma excelled in the advanced science track. "Did you ever imagine this is where we'd end up?" Martha asked quietly, her arm linked with Robert's for support. "That day when they found each other." "Never in my wildest dreams," Robert admitted. "I was terrified, remember? Afraid of what it meant, afraid of disrupting Lily's life. And I was certain you were going to take Emma away from me," Martha recalled with a small laugh. "Instead, you brought me into your family." The nature of Robert and Martha's relationship had evolved into something unique, not romantic, but deeply intimate and trusting. They functioned as co-parents, business partners through the foundation, and now as Martha's health declined, as mutual caregivers in different ways. Martha provided the emotional wisdom Robert sometimes lacked, while he offered the practical support she increasingly needed. At the restaurant, Rebecca was waiting at a large corner table, her face lighting up when she spotted them. At 42, she had transformed from the fragile, troubled woman they had first met into a confident professional whose struggles had shaped rather than defined her. "Happy benchiversary," she greeted them with a grin, having been briefed on the celebration by the girls earlier. "I brought something to mark the occasion." She handed each of the girls a small canvas, hand-painted portraits of them sitting together on the Copley Square bench, rendered in Rebecca's distinctive impressionist style. The paintings captured not just their physical likeness, but something of their essential natures: Lily's expressive energy and Emma's thoughtful intensity. "Thank you, Rebecca." As they settled in for lunch, Robert observed the women around the table. Martha, whose practical wisdom and unwavering devotion had created a stable foundation for Emma. Rebecca, whose journey through darkness to recovery had taught them all about resilience. And the girls who at 14 stood on the cusp of womanhood, carrying Eleanor's legacy forward in their different ways. "These are amazing," Lily breathed, studying the brushwork with an artist's appreciation. "Truly beautiful," Emma agreed. "A toast," he proposed, raising his water glass. "To family, in all its unexpected forms." "To family," they echoed, glasses clinking. The conversation flowed easily, touching on upcoming events. The mathematics competition Emma was coordinating for underprivileged schools through the Eleanor Caldwell Foundation. Lily's art being selected for a student exhibition at the Museum of Fine Arts. Rebecca's recent grant to expand arts programming for mental health patients across New England. Martha mostly listened, a contented smile on her face as she watched the interactions around her. Though she spoke less these days, conserving her energy, her presence remained the emotional anchor of their unusual family. After lunch, as they strolled through the public garden, Emma linked her arm through Martha's while Lily walked ahead with Rebecca and Robert, discussing plans for Lily's portfolio development. "Are you tired?" Emma asked, noticing Martha's slower pace. "We can sit for a while." "A bit," Martha admitted, "but it's a good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a full life." They found a bench near the swan boats and Emma helped Martha settle comfortably before sitting beside her. "I've been meaning to ask you something," Emma said, her expression serious. "About college." "You're only 14, Martha reminded her with a gentle smile. "Still plenty of time to decide." "I know, but I've been thinking about it since the MIT summer program," Emma explained. "I want to study astrophysics, to understand how the universe works, how stars are born and die, how galaxies form." "That sounds perfect for you," Martha encouraged. "You've always had your head in the stars." "But MIT is here in Boston," Emma continued. "And I've been offered a spot in their accelerated program for exceptional students, starting when I'm 16. Martha's eyes widened. 2 years early. "Emma, that's wonderful. But it would mean living at home for college," Emma said, watching Martha's face carefully. "And I know most kids want to go away, have independence." "And you're worried about missing that experience?" Martha guessed. Emma shook her head. "I'm worried about you, about not being here if your health gets worse." Martha reached out, stilling the tremor in her hand through sheer force of will, and placed it over Emma's. "My sweet girl, you must never make your educational decisions based on my health." "But you've always been there for me," Emma insisted, "ever since I was 3 years old. How could I not be there for you?" "By living your life fully," Martha said firmly. "By reaching for the stars, literally in your case. That's how you honor the sacrifices we've all made for you." Emma blinked back tears. "I just don't want to miss any time with you." "I'm not going anywhere anytime soon," Martha assured her. "And when I do, many years from now, I'll go knowing that you and Lily are launching into lives worthy of all your potential. That's all any parent or guardian could wish for." Emma leaned her head against Martha's shoulder, a gesture she had performed countless times since childhood. "I love you, Martha." "And I love you, my extraordinary girl," Martha replied, resting her cheek against Emma's hair. Across the garden, Robert watched this exchange, unable to hear the words, but understanding the depth of connection between them. He had once feared that bringing Emma into their lives would somehow diminish Lily's place or dilute his relationship with her. Instead, their capacity for love had expanded, encompassing new connections while strengthening existing ones. That evening, after the girls had gone upstairs to their rooms and Martha had retired to her first-floor suite, Robert sat in his study reviewing foundation documents. A soft knock at the door interrupted his concentration. "Dad?" Emma stood in the doorway, still dressed but with her hair loose around her shoulders, looking so much like Eleanor that Robert's breath caught. "Can we talk?" "Of course, Stargazer," he said, using his special nickname for her. "What's on your mind?" Emma settled into the leather chair across from his desk, tucking her feet beneath her. "I've been thinking about Mom, Eleanor, I mean." Robert set aside his papers, giving her his full attention. "What about her? Do you think she knew somehow that Lily and I would find each other? That day in Copley Square couldn't have been coincidence." "I don't know," Robert admitted. "Eleanor was brilliant at planning, at seeing 3 steps ahead of everyone else. But this," he gestured vaguely, encompassing their entire situation, "this seems beyond even her abilities." "Maybe the universe helped," Emma suggested, her eyes drifting to the star chart hanging on the wall, a gift from Robert on her 12th birthday. "I've been reading about quantum entanglement, how particles that once interacted remain connected, even when separated by vast distances." Robert smiled at her scientific approach to what was essentially a spiritual question. Like you and Lily, connected through Eleanor's DNA. Exactly, Emma nodded, warming to her theory. And maybe that connection was strong enough to draw us back together, despite all the obstacles. It's a beautiful thought, Robert acknowledged, that the bonds of family can transcend conventional limitations. That's what makes us special, isn't it? Emma mused. That we created our family across boundaries most people never have to consider. Very special indeed, Robert agreed. I've decided to accept the MIT accelerated admission, Emma announced suddenly. I want to study the stars, but I also want to stay close to our family tree. Robert felt a surge of pride and relief. Though he would have supported Emma attending any university that called to her, the thought of her remaining in Boston for a few more years was deeply comforting. Eleanor would be so proud of you, he said softly, of the choices you're making, of the woman you're becoming. Sometimes I feel her watching over us, Emma confessed, not in a creepy way, but like she's making sure everything worked out according to plan. Her greatest plan, Robert said with a smile. Bringing all of us together. Emma rose and circled the desk, bending to give Robert a quick hug before heading toward the door. There she paused, turning back with an expression that reminded him powerfully of Lily as a small child. Dad, thank you for finding me, for making me part of this family. Before Robert could respond, she was gone, her footsteps light on the stairs. He sat in silence, absorbing the simple truth of her words. He hadn't found Emma, Lily had, but he had chosen to pursue that connection, to overcome his initial fear and embrace the complexity it brought to their lives. And in doing so, he had discovered that the greatest wealth wasn't contained in his bank accounts or investment portfolios. It resided in the intricate web of relationships that now defined his existence. Relationships built not on obligation or convention, but on choice and commitment. 7 years ago, a little girl had spotted her mirror image sitting on a bench in Copley Square and declared with childlike certainty, "Daddy, she's my sister." What had seemed impossible in that moment had become the foundation of their shared reality, a reality richer and more nuanced than anything Robert could have imagined for himself or for Lily after Eleanor's passing. The true legacy of Eleanor Caldwell wasn't her DNA, shared by two remarkable girls born into vastly different circumstances. It was the love that had expanded to encompass an elderly caretaker, a recovering birth mother, and a grieving widower, bringing them all into an orbit around the twin stars at the center of their unusual solar system. Family, Robert had learned, wasn't defined by biology or legality or even proximity. It was defined by the simple, profound willingness to belong to each other, to claim each other, to choose each other. Again and again, through hardship and joy, across all the boundaries that typically divided people from one another. Outside his window, the stars emerged one by one in the darkening sky, distant suns around which unknown worlds revolved. Robert thought of Emma's passion for astrophysics, her desire to understand the fundamental forces that shaped the universe. Perhaps she would someday discover that the same forces that bound atoms and planets and galaxies together were not so different from those that bound human hearts to one another. And perhaps in that discovery, she would find the ultimate answer to the question that had started their journey. How had two little girls, separated by circumstance and social barriers, recognized each other instantly on a bench in Copley Square? Not coincidence, not luck, but something deeper and more profound, a connection that transcended the visible world, bringing together those who belonged to each other across whatever distance tried to separate them. In that moment, Robert understood with perfect clarity that true wealth had nothing to do with the millions in his bank accounts or the success of his company. True wealth was sitting in Lucia's restaurant, watching 4 generations of women, from Martha to Lily and Emma, laughing together across a table. It was hearing his daughter call another man's biological child sister without hesitation or qualification. It was seeing Rebecca find her path to health and purpose with their collective support. True wealth was the family they had built together, piece by unexpected piece, creating something beautiful and enduring from what could have been tragedy and loss. As he turned off his desk lamp and prepared to join Martha for their nightly cup of tea, Robert whispered a quiet thank you to Eleanor, wherever she was, for setting in motion the extraordinary chain of events that had enriched all their lives beyond measure. And somewhere in the vast universe, perhaps among the stars that Emma so loved to study, he liked to believe that Eleanor heard him and smiled. Fimda Historia. Dear listeners, we hope the story of Lily and Emma touched your heart. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories. Find it by clicking to your left. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give the video a thumbs up. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of life. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to reading your comments.